Magalhaes to Stokes, who's onside. 1-0.
Here's Sims. It's a good serve this from Southampton. They could finish the job here. It's Shane Long, and he has done it. Just a minute to play. That's stoppage time. Here's Letizia. Who better to say farewell than one of the finest players ever to wear the red and white?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Saints FC podcast. This week I'm joined by Tom Parker, and you may notice that I haven't gone through the normal pleasantries that we exchange at the start of a normal episode. Sadly, my recording device malfunctioned, so you missed that and our analysis of the Saints-Tottenham game. So we're going to get straight into Saints versus Leicester. What is a slightly shorter podcast, but I hope you still enjoy it anyway. Do let us know your thoughts, saintsfcpodcast@gmail.com, and I shall endeavour to make sure the equipment is behaving itself properly next time round.
Saints 1, Leicester 1, Friday night game. God, Sky were going really heavy on 9-0 for this one, weren't they? I mean, it was atypical. Yes, when are we going to show this the Saints Leicester game? Let's show it on a Friday night, like it was last time at St Mary's. And they just went in so hard on the 9-0.
I thought it was kind of embarrassing, to be frank. And also, I think, it's weird, isn't it, where they persist with having commentators on games that are heavily affiliated to those clubs.
Mm.
And Smudger, is Leicester through and through. You can hear it by listening to him. And Martin Tyler had obviously been briefed and thought it was hilarious just to bang on about the 9-0. I thought it was kind of cringe-worthy.
Yeah. I mean, that sort of like Saints Twitter account, have either of the 9-0s been mentioned?
Pinged. Did some numbers, didn't it, that night, John?
Yeah. And, I mean, we'll get onto this a little bit more. So we start off and, I don't know, the first 7 or 8 minutes were as good as Saints have been in 7 or 8 minutes, I think, this season, weren't they? They were totally at the races, totally up for it, fired up. Carl Walker-Peters had that goal disallowed for offside, which came from a really great break. Fantastic finish from a right back as well.
Great pass.
Even if he was fractionally offside.
Yeah.
And then and Teller had a good chance, didn't he? Swiped at it.
Yeah, Teller's a funny one, isn't it? Well, also let's talk about the lineup as well, because no Bertrand, Minamino comes in for Ings, no Bertrand, Jack Stevens, who can we say he's a favourite of the pod, or is he not? He's a favourite. I like him. But I know I
think he's like a cult hero of the pod, isn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, I know some of our listeners can't stand him.
No, a lot of people have very strong feelings about Jack Stevens. But actually, is actually a pretty competent left back.
For a right-footed centre back, he's covered himself quite well, hasn't he?
Yeah, he played well against Newcastle as well earlier in the season, playing left back. And I actually think he is probably one of our more sensible replacements because he is so sensible and boring. He always doesn't try and be a left back. He just plays a centre back, a left back. But yeah, Saints started really well. Teller's chance. I feel with Teller because he doesn't. I think there's the makings of a really good player there. I actually think he could be a better player for Saints than Minamino, a more suitable player for Saints. Sorry, he's not technically as good. But A, he's got time to become as good, and B, he seems to be more suited to the physical attributes of the Premier League, which I don't think Minamino probably is. But yeah, it kind of just lifts it off the turf as he goes to hit it, and he scuffs it. Great work from Shay Adams again. And at this point, Saints are looking pretty good, John.
Yeah, I mean, so I think the Saints are looking great. we then have the Vestergaard sending off incident.
I have strong feelings.
So, I mean, I don't know, Tom. Like the Southampton Football Club were involved in the social media boycott against sort of like vile racist abuse, which crops up on social media, especially in Instagram and Twitter, directed towards players. And I thought, as the Saints FC podcast, we should support this.
Yep.
But very shortly after the start of this social media blackout, I really desperately wanted to take to Twitter to go, what on earth was that red card about? I mean, I would have probably worded it more strongly than that in a language that wouldn't be polite to put out to all of our listeners. But I was absolutely fuming because, yes, Vestergaard sort of miscontrols it, but then he gets the ball perfectly well and passes it back to McCarthy, despite being at full stretch. And then after he's passed the ball back to McCarthy, his leg obviously follows through to the on-rushing Jamie Vardy. And then it's given as a red card. And Tom, I just don't understand what the rules of football are anymore.
Well, I think this is the problem, isn't it? That I think it's not just you, John. I think the referee I watched it and I was like, sorry, been sent off. And I was disbelief. I was like, oh my God, it's going to happen again. You know, under the floodlights, Friday night at St Mary's, at home to Leicester, down to 10 men after less than 10 minutes, or what was it last time, 11 minutes. And I thought, here we go again. I thought this is like written in the stars. And then I saw the replay and I was like, it's okay because VAR is going to stop this. Like, I was so sure. I was like, it's okay, actually. I'm not annoyed because this is exactly what VAR's here for. You can see he clearly gets the ball in the motion of getting the ball where his studs are not off the ground. His foot getting the ball bounces back up and hits Jamie Vardy's ankle. But he clearly has the ball. Vardy is in no way anywhere near it or in any way in control of it. It bounces harmlessly through to McCarthy. I actually thought it probably was a foul. I thought it was, you know, in the modern game, if you get the ball but follow through, it's generally a foul. I thought it would be a yellow. I thought what are you going to see? You know, the ref's very eager. Jamie Vardy has been looking like, whether he was or not, I don't know, like he's in a lot of pain. The game's on Sky. Very young was his 10th game in the Premier League.
The ref, yeah.
His referee runs over and immediately brandishes the red card. And I thought it's okay, you know. And I think that one of the most interesting things about it is if you watch the reaction of Jan Bednarek and you watch the reaction of the Saints players, they're almost like it's okay because VAR's gonna bring this out. And then I watched like Vestergaard walking off, and I was like, well, at what point?
Why is he going? When does the VAR check happen?
And then they didn't. And I thought it was an astonishingly bad decision. And I don't, you know, I'm not a big believer in conspiracy theories, but how can they get it so wrong? How can they look at that and think he has denied a goal scoring opportunity when Vardy isn't in control of the ball? But then I have my own theory about that. But it's such a weird, awful decision that I mean, Saints are appealing it. I think they must be pretty confident they're going to win the appeal. But I was mortified by it. And I think it ruins the game as a spectacle, doesn't it?
I mean, it does. I mean, maybe it doesn't for others. But I mean, also, the whole decision was compounded by that. The point you just made there is that the red card was for denying a clear goal scoring opportunity. Now, if you're denying a clear goal scoring opportunity by making a successful interception or tackle or lunge or pass back, is that not your job as a defender? I mean, if the red card had been for dangerous play, then I could see perhaps there's an argument that he's lunging and he shouldn't lunge because he might hurt another player. But how could it be for preventing a goal-scoring opportunity if Vardy never has the ball and Vestergaard plays it back to McCarthy? Vardy's never getting that ball, is he? Even if he doesn't fall over, McCarthy's getting that ball before Vardy is.
But then this is my theory, John. and I might be giving them too much credit here. My theory is that they knew probably quite straight away they'd made a big mistake. And my theory is I wonder if they just said foul play, dangerous foul play, that's in the eye of the beholder, isn't it? And today, whatever, if you think it's dangerous foul play and you're the referee, then that's that. I think the reason they gave it as denying clear goal scoring opportunities because they knew they'd made a cock up, and by saying it's denying clear goal scoring opportunity, they therefore give Saints leave to make a successful appeal, so they don't compound the original error by then having Vestergaard banned for one more game.
That's very strange, though, isn't it, Tom? I mean,
why do it? I mean, surely they should have just seen that they'd made the wrong decision and just stopped it.
I just don't know how anyone could watch that replay and go, yeah, red card.
Yeah, that thing there, that's definitely, he didn't get the ball. But then I just don't get it. I just don't get how the Premier League, and let's face it, it's not really a sport. It's an entertainment product. And if you went to the theatre and you paid £85 to watch a musical, and 9 minutes into a 90-minute musical, one of the main characters' microphones broke, and therefore you couldn't get, it's Hamilton, and you couldn't hear, Hamilton sing, you'd go, this is pretty bad entertainment product. Like, this shouldn't happen. And football needs to think about it. If football believes it's an entertainment product, and let's face it, it is now, it needs to have rigorous standards, and it loses its entertainment value when decisions are being made which are so harmful to it to the game as a spectacle.
Yeah, and I think at this point as well, the game completely changes, because before this, I think everyone's looking at this game, well, Saints are really at the races. They're going to get a goal here. They're looking really, really good. After this happens, everyone's triggered by it. I'm triggered by it. You're triggered by it. Everyone's thinking, oh, God, here we go again. It's going to be 9-0. I think the big difference here between the other two 9-0s, or the two 9-0s that have gone before, is Ralph is quicker to react here.
Yes.
And he nearly immediately takes off Teller and brings on Salisi, so that we have a full defensive complement.
And then he says, break us down.
Yeah.
And leaves Shea Adams up front, which is the right thing to do.
I thought, just in case I forget, but Shea Adams, amazing. A lot of people were saying Redmond should have been taken off instead of Teller. And this is why I'm going to explain why I think Ralph got it right here. Redmond is one of the few players that can take the ball, hold the ball, dribble with the ball, and hold on to it for longer. When you've got your backs against the wall and you're booting it out, and you've either got Redmond or Adams kind of running onto it to try and get it, I think Redmond holding the ball, even if he dribbles past three players and then gives it away, is better than someone who can't do that, and it just comes straight back at you, comes straight back at you. And actually, I thought Redmond did really, really well. So that I'm just sticking up for him here as well after seeing some of the comments about his performance, because I thought he did fantastically.
He's also an experienced wise head, isn't he? And Teller, for all his undoubted talents, is not. He's quite a rookie player. I think he had a really good game. I think Adams had a really, really strong game. But you're right. I think at that point, the game just completely changes. But Ralph, doing what he hadn't done previously, like you say, immediately makes the changes. And Saints actually, you know what? They look pretty good.
Don't
they? They look not comfortable, but they look pretty okay with what's going on.
I mean, Leicester were creating lots of chances. I think they created, 22 versus the 26 chances that they had in the other fixture. But in last season's game, every time they surged forward, every chance they had was good, and they finished it. And in this game, they might have had 22 chances, but none of them were particularly great. There were probably 3 chances that were good for Leicester in the entire game.
I would agree. Maddison was just kind of taking pot shots.
Yeah. I mean, they had quite a few shots that went up into Rose Ed. And if you're managing to limit a team that has got one more player than you, has got the tactics and the nous to be able to really stretch you and defeat you and hurt you, as they have done before, to limit their players to shooting into Rose Ed from miles away is absolutely fine.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think this was this is a cliche, isn't it, again in football, but that it was almost like a season-defining performance, wasn't it? Defining performance. I think I was not. I think. What do you want? Let's talk about the second half, and then we'll talk about what it meant. But
yeah,
I feel quite strongly about this game.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, second half we get a penalty,
and it is a penalty, John.
And it's a legitimate penalty from a handball, and James Ward-Prowse steps up, and we're all thinking, God, James Ward-Prowse really isn't that great at penalties. I think that was his 6th one now, and he scored 3.
Good at saving them, isn't he, as well?
Yeah. But this penalty was perfect, wasn't it? It was low, it was hard, it was close enough to the corner that even though Schmeichel guessed right or dived right, there was no chance that he could get it. Yeah. Unsavable is the category I put that into. I think that's any keeper you put there, that's going in.
Yeah, and I thought fair play to Ward-Prowse as well, because obviously had a bit of a shonky penalty against West Brom. The team aren't playing particularly well. Well, that's an understatement. Over the course of the last probably 12 games or so. But he stood up and he was counted, wasn't he? And I thought, I know he is the penalty taker, so he doesn't really get a choice. But it takes guts to, rather than just smash it, but to do what he did.
Yeah. Yeah. So, kudos to James Ward-Prowse. I think he's got pretty good return this year now, hasn't he?
He's the most, in terms of goal contributions, goals and assists. In terms of midfielders in the Premier League, he's the number 1 English midfielder. I think he's only behind De Bruyne and someone else whose name escapes me in terms of goal contributions.
Goal contributions.
Yeah.
He's got 8 goals in the Premier League this season.
Is that his career high?
Yes, he had 7 in the 18-19 season.
Yeah. He's going to probably be the most important player for Saints through these next 5 games, isn't he?
Yeah, and if he plays all 5 games, Tom, that will be 38 of all 38 Premier League games completed, which would go on last season's record of 38 of 38 Premier League games completed.
Touch wood. What a player.
Yeah.
What a captain.
We're very fantastic.
We were critical of him in the past, but my God, the guy is an animal.
Yeah. Really pleased for him. Wasn't very pleased when Barnes got his equaliser.
Yeah, Johnny Evans.
Did I say? I said Barnes. Yeah, Johnny Evans. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it was kind of coming, but it was a stupid goal to concede, wasn't it?
It was annoying. And then I thought when Vardy broke through and he was 1-on-1 in front of McCarthy from not very far out, I thought that was it. And then he hits it at McCarthy's foot, doesn't he?
Yeah. McCarthy had a good game.
Yeah, he did. Much better than the previous game against Leicester last season at St Mary's.
Well, that was Angus Gunn, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, it was, yeah.
That was the end of Gunn.
That was the end of Gunn.
Gunn was fired. Decommissioned. Yeah, I thought the equaliser was frustrating because it's kind of one of those ones where if you have a really aggressive centre-back, a la like John Terry or Nemanja Vidic, they get that ball.
Mm.
But we obviously have Jan Benrek, who is let's safe to say, I don't think you'd class him in the aggressive calibre of centre backs.
No. We make it to the end, and this was a draw that felt as sweet as a win.
Oh God, yeah, 100%.
I sort of maybe may have stood up in my front room and started making V signs and saying rude things about Martin Tyler and Sky Sports and their narrative that they were trying to push. I felt defiant, Tom. That's what I'm telling you.
I think you're entitled to. I think it was clear. I don't believe again that there's like a conspiracy. Referee get players sent off to try and recreate that to make good TV. But I think what's frustrating is the obvious zest by which Martin Tyler and Alan Smith spoke about it.
Mm.
And I felt that was kind of just in poor taste, and also just kind of unprofessional, because like fundamentally they're journalists. They might be TV commentators, but first and foremost they're journalists. And Alan Smith didn't, but I guarantee Martin Tyler would have started out his career in sports journalism or journalism of something, and I think some nature. And I think they kind of lose their kind of they're there for both sets of fans, and then they're there for the neutral. But if you completely turn off one entire set of fans, then you're losing a third of your audience, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty annoyed by it, but then it gave me something to feel, to sort of behave like I might behave. No, I'm not that sort of fan, but sort of behave maybe like I would in the away end at a football match after a defiant performance. So I'll have to thank him for that. But yeah, you're right. He was the ghostwriter on football pundit Jimmy Hill's column in the Times back in the 1960s.
There you go. See, but that's my point. Is journalists who I work with every day for my sins, generally a really, really good bunch, and they have like editorial standards. And I felt that Sky, again, in this drive to turn it into an entertainment product, you lose those a little bit.
Yeah. I also felt like here, Tom, Ralph is always very good for a little soundbite. So like, oh yeah, there's no guarantees in football. Go and get a washing machine, or we win or we learn. I felt like the we win or we learn had become a bit of a hollow statement, and I didn't really think that he was following that statement.
Particularly
in recent months,
over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely, and not changing things, and I don't think there was much learning being shown by Ralph or the squad. This time, it felt like we had learned. I mean, it's a shame that it's taken us two massive, awful defeats that we're going to be reminded about for the rest of our lives as Saints fans to learn the lesson. But we have finally learned a lesson here, haven't we?
I would hope so. I think part of the lesson as well is that the good teams in the Premier League, and Leicester are definitely in that category, are now so good, aren't they? And they have players that can hurt you all over the pitch. And to be fair, credit to Leicester, their recruitment is so good, isn't it? If you look at we get players, we spoke about this last time round. Saints are still paying the price, metaphorically and literally, for bad signings, big bad signings. And if you look at some of the players Leicester have signed, like Castagnier, Fofana, Ndidi, Tielemans, these are really, really, really good.
To be honest, Johnny Evans, £3 million from West Brom.
I mean, that's a great sign. I mean, it's, Kasper Schmeichel. Vardy's still, I know he's on a bit of a poor run, but he's still doing it. Iheanacho, I'm actually surprised at all the surprise at Iheanacho, because I don't know he used to sort of seemingly score against Saints every single time he played for them against Saints for Man City.
Yeah, I don't think there's any Saints fans that are surprised by Iheanacho's rise.
And I
think we're seeing it coming.
A ridiculously deadly efficient striker.
Mm.
But yeah, credit to Leicester. But look, season defining.
They are the model, though, aren't they, for a club the size of Southampton?
Yep.
To follow. If you get your recruitment right, get your managerial appointments right, create a good feeling in the club, then you can achieve amazing things, really.
Yeah, and if you think about it, the way that you would argue that, one of the things you read about modern footballers is they all want to be in London or Manchester. Yeah, if they have to move to the UK and it's not London, then they want to be in Manchester. But Leicester is as far away from from Birmingham. Well, not as far from Birmingham, but as Southampton is from London almost. And so, the players are going there because they're creating the right working culture and the right environment for them to progress as players. And I thought it was quite interesting.
But, I mean, also, maybe you don't want to sign players whose main ambition is to live in London. Maybe you want to sign players whose main ambition is to achieve something at the football club.
Yeah.
And, they're going to earn millions of pounds in their careers. The chance to go and drink in wanky rooftop bars is going to come, Tom.
Sort of places where you and I go, John.
Where I used to go, Tom. Now I just go and sit in the mud in Dartmoor. That's as good as it gets.
I think it's I think they are the model, and all credit to them. My frustration with them this season is they didn't have to work that hard to beat Saints in that semi-final.
Yeah,
and that's what's going to really stick in the craw this season. But I think a season-defining result, not a season-defining, but I guess I was genuinely concerned about the prospect of relegation. I know that Saints fans, a lot of them were like, well, we're never going to get relegated. But it wasn't unfeasible that we could lose every single game for the rest of the season.
It was sort of looking that way, wasn't it?
And it wasn't unfeasible that Fulham would pick up the points. So I think it was such an important game because I think it didn't get the point that kept us up, but it probably is the point that means that Fulham and West Brom know that it's almost not going to happen for them.
Yeah.
Which is weird. Newcastle and Burnley are actually below Saints, aren't they? But
only 1 point below, isn't it? It's all quite close.
They've been picking up results, and Saints, apart from the Burnley match, haven't. Saints have been a free fall, haven't they? So
yeah,
it felt like a really important result.
I think you're right. I think it did feel really, really important. And, Fulham's form has dropped off quite significantly as well. So they were on a really good run, but now they've only had 1 point from their last 5 games. It's all over for them now, I think, Tom.
You would think so. I mean, looking at the table, it looks like it's over for West Brom. Saints are going to have to be something tremendously unfortunate. It's going to have to happen to Saints, isn't it, for them to go down? Just looking now, I think we've got 5 games left. Fulham have got to win every single one?
Well, Fulham have only got 4 games left, and they're 10 points behind us. So they need to win 3 and draw 1 and make sure they beat us.
Yes, and Saints, and they've got a worse goal difference. And then Saints have to lose all 5.
Yeah. Are we safe now, Tom?
I think you could probably say we're safe. I think the Leicester. I think as well. Like, if you think outside of the points, I imagine the importance of mentally securing that point is almost as important as the point itself. If that makes any sense.
I think it makes total sense. It's almost like the point that proves that we're capable of getting more points this season. Yeah. And the performance, I suppose.
Yes, and the performance that, and I don't know how many of our listeners follow Glen de la Cour, I think is he on Twitter?
Yeah.
He's a really good Saints fan, and every week he has a really good analysis of on his League -10 blog of the game. And I think one of the points he made, which was a really good one, is it showed the players are still playing for Ralph.
Yeah, which I don't think I was 100% sure of a few games ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been a number of games. Pick your fancy, but I was thinking about the Brighton game. How bad it's were in that game. I mean, if you look, we've lost. Just looking at this table in front of me now, we've lost recently to Brighton, Newcastle, and West Brom. We lost 3-0 to West Brom. I mean, what the hell?
I mean, that really was dreadful, wasn't it?
And that's when you started to question whether the players were still playing for Ralph. But I think the Leicester games put that to bed. and also, I think secured our Premier League status, hopefully.
So the next 3 fixtures coming up in quite rapid succession. We've got Liverpool on Saturday.
Interesting.
Yeah. Then we've got Palace Tuesday next week. And then Fulham the following Saturday. So
9 points, Tom.
9 points.
Well, yeah.
What's going to happen in the Liverpool game then, Tom? I mean, they're going to be very well rested.
Do you
think there's going to be a protest at Anfield? Do you think the Liverpool fans might protest against the European Super League, seeing what the Manchester United fans have done? They're not going to want to be outdone by the Man United fans, are they?
Well, I think this is a slightly different situation, isn't it? Because I think that John Henry, is it the Liverpool guy? He did, in my job is I do PR, and one of the things I would have said if I'd have been at one of these clubs is I'd have said, you need to go out there and you need to say sorry. You got it wrong, and you'll learn from it. That is like the classic corporate cock-up threesome that you have to do. You have to say you're sorry, you have to say you got it wrong, and you have to say you learn from it. And that's what Liverpool did. John Henry released a video where he apologised to the fans. And also, I think, they've been winning, haven't they? So, and they've put their money where their mouth is. They've signed the best players they've signed the best centre back in the world. Sadio Mane is one of the best forwards in the world. They've invested big money. Man United have signed players that aren't of that caliber, you would argue, or when they've signed big players, they've arguably signed the wrong big players. So they signed Pogba, and then they spent loads of money on Maguire, both of which, probably not the world's best signing. So I don't think you'll see it on Merseyside on Saturday. I don't think you will. I think, but what will be interesting is whether Liverpool will be too rested. Is that possible? Can Liverpool be too rested?
I don't know, Tom. I mean, we couldn't even beat Tottenham when they had Ryan Mason, younger than both of us, quite significantly, managing a Premier League football team. Also, can we just have a little laugh at Tottenham because they sacked Mourinho thinking they were getting the money from the Super League and that was going to pay for his compensation fee. They've got themselves a big old bill to pay there now.
I mean, looking at Liverpool's last game, they conceded a 95 minute equaliser on the against Newcastle. I mean, they lost 6 on the bounce at home earlier this year, John. And
I mean, I would love it. Do you think Ralph would break down in tears again if we managed to beat Liverpool? I think I might do.
I mean, it will have been 2 weeks since their last game.
Yeah.
Which is a long time.
Or do we rest all of our players for this one and then go big against Palace at home on Tuesday?
I don't think they do because I don't think we have the ability to rest players.
No.
I mean, if you think about it, I mean, he's talking about dropping McCarthy. He said he's going to drop McCarthy, isn't he? Which I think is mad. But I mean, you physically, we don't have another left back because we've already got a centre back playing left back. Yeah, you could probably swap out assuming Vestergaard's appeal is successful. I would actually drop Bednarek and bring in Salisu. Because I think Salisu looks a different gravy, and also Liverpool have reams of pace, and it gives you that. But we can't drop a right back. I mean, we know that's probably our worst position to try and drop a player. We're never going to drop James Ward-Prowse. We don't have enough forwards. Yeah, we can mix them up.
You've got to play Armstrong in every game.
You have to play Armstrong in every game. You don't have Danny Ings, so one of Walcott or Redmond is going to play. Teller might get a chance. The team names itself.
So 1-0 win for Saints at Anfield with Teller getting the goal.
Yeah, are we all joking aside though? Saints
I'm guessing Minamino can't play, can he?
Minamino can't play. A Saints win is not impossible here.
I love how hard optimism has changed. We've just shown a little bit of resilience for one game, and this is it. That's the sign that we were looking for, Tom.
Yeah, but it's not that. John, they're not the Liverpool they were last season. Yeah, don't get me wrong, they'll probably still beat us. But they're not they've lost a lot of games.
Yeah. Tom, let's wrap up the podcast here on that note that we're going to go and beat Liverpool. We've got Palace and Fulham again, so I think we'll have 3 games to talk about probably next time we chat, unless the game against Liverpool is so good that we just have to squeeze in a podcast before Palace. I can't see that happening. Life is too busy, man. Big shout out to Jacob Tanswell, who's just consistently knocking out the best writing on Saints consistently, week in, week out. Did you catch his latest one on Prost International? I
did, and I drunkenly tweeted about it on Saturday night. So thanks for paying attention to my social media output, John. Look, Jacob, who's been on the pod a few times, and who is, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, a literal child genius, has written a brilliant. If you haven't read, it's the most insightful piece of writing about Saints this season. And it's fascinating because it talks about the stuff that you or I and that 99.9% of people will just never see, doesn't it, John? It talks about things like Saints in the build up to the game, their warm up being designed to mislead the Leicester scouts watching them.
Well, not only their warm up, but also the way they set out just for the first couple of minutes of the game as well.
Yeah, it's just really interesting because it just shows you how much the game has changed, doesn't it? And it makes me laugh when you see like these dinosaurs like Roy Keane and people like that never got anywhere in management, and you just see they probably just would never dream of thinking about that kind of, again, like subterfuge. It's a great piece, and I would really encourage everyone to read it because also it fills you with a bit of hope, and it makes you realise that, you know what, there is a plan, and that if they invest enough in this team can do some really good stuff.
Yeah. And for those of you that are trying to remember what the Gausto voucher code was, it's JOHN John 42051224. But you can just email me, saintsfcpodcast@gmail.com, and I'll go give you your money off. Tom, lovely to see you. I'm sorry that my webcam wasn't working this evening, so you can't see me back. But
I know what you look like.
You know what I look like. Listeners, thank you very much for joining us once again. Do let us know your thoughts. We're on Twitter. We have email addresses. You know how to get in contact, so do it. But bye-bye.
Have a good one.